it though? Boy, isn't it though? Hello, everybody. Welcome. David Dowd got the hat. Yes. Love it. Freaking love it. All right, let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Fierce Conversations, day 3, zipping by. While no single conversation can guarantee the change, the trajectory of a career, a company, a relationship, or a life, any single conversation can. Any single conversation can. Just a quick reminder of what do we look for in terms of symptoms in a fierce conversation. We should be speaking with our real voice, We should be speaking to the heart of the matter, the fire, not the smoke. Remember, we've talked about that. We're really asking and really listening. We will be generating heat. You are enriching the relationship, and you are different when the conversation is over. You are different when the conversation is over. A lot of us fail to enter into a conversation with that expectation of us actually changing, right? We kind of play out the scenario in our heads. We've got it all figured out. It's the rest of the world that's screwed up, right? And so we have very little expectation of change, right? Very little expectation of change. So let's dive into transformational idea number 3, which is the following. All conversations are with myself, and sometimes they involve other people. All conversations are with myself, and sometimes involve other people. And really what we're talking about here, brace yourself, Jen, gonna do another screen share. I know it's unbelievable. What we're really talking about in this conversation today is our context filter, And I grabbed the image of that somewhere. There we go. Boom. Here we go. Context filter. Can you guys see that? Opinions, attitudes. Give me a couple of nods if you see it. Opinions, attitudes, beliefs, and truths constitute your context filter. Opinions. Whose opinions? Come off mute. Whose opinions am I talking about?
Well, I guess I better read this.
My own.
Yes,
opinion.
yes, our opinions, our attitudes, our beliefs, what we see as truths, okay? So the combination, right? Big word, come, embrace yourself. The confluence of those 4 things creates our filter, how we view the world. So I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to talk a little politics, right? But I'm going to walk that line, so don't worry, okay? Don't let your blood pressure get up, right? It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Everybody I know has an opinion about our president. Everybody I know has an opinion about our president. I have yet to meet somebody who's just, whatever, right? And much like an artist like, say, Jackson Pollock, there's a lot of passionate opinion that runs the spectrum, right? People really passionately love Jackson Pollock, and then there were artists and people in the art community who passionately hated Jackson Pollock. And I think our current president also has some of that, right? So here's what we need to know in terms of context filter. If you are of the opinion that we don't have a great president right now, every piece of news that comes out is going through that filter. So something that the person does that might be inspiring is not going to get through. We're not going to hear it. Or we're going to say, that's a one-off.
Say that again.
right? That's not really the person, right? That kind of a thing. So, and if we have an opinion that, woohoo, both thumbs up, Prez is doing a great job, anything negative coming out about that person is going to have a very hard time getting through that filter, right? It's our confirmation bias. We have a great ability as humans to scan the horizon, scan the world around us for new information that confirms what we already believe. We take in all of the information available to us for the purposes of confirming what we already believe. Here is the danger in doing that in a conversation. Hey, Jen, can you mute yourself, please? Here's the danger of doing that in a conversation. I'm just having the conversation with myself then. I've already decided what everything that's true about the world, everything that's possible about this communication, and I've closed the door off to all sorts of possibilities. Because I'm forcing everything through this filter that I think is fixed, which should really actually be flexible and developing over time. Do our opinions change over the long haul? Give me some nods or shakes. Right? If you look back on yourself 20 years ago, have your opinions changed in areas of your life? Right? Yeah. And yet everything we have opinions about right now in this moment, we will often hold so dear. We'll often see them as, what's a phrase that's come out in the last few years, become very popular as my truth, right? Well, this is my truth. No, it's not. It's your fucking opinion. It's your perspective. Truth doesn't have perspective. Truth is, gravity is. What you think about it has no impact upon it. We have to be very cognizant of our filter. How are you viewing the world? And are you willing to set that aside and open your eyes and ears to a fresh conversation? Remember, when we have a fierce conversation, who is going to be different when the conversation is over? Who? Yeah.
We are.
This guy, right? You, Lee. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We have to be open to that possibility. And it's tough. I talked about this with some of my crew in Maine this morning. We are born judging machines. We have to be willing to set that aside to have these kinds of conversations. Leave the door open for the fact that, hey, maybe I don't know everything, right? For some of us, it comes a little easier. For others, man, that's a really hard place to be standing. So I want to challenge you to examine your filter. Examine, how do you view the world? And are you willing to set that aside? Are you willing to take in all information? And now is such a great time to test this. Such a great time to test this, okay? If you tend to view the world optimistically, I promise you're looking for news that reinforces that. If you tend to view the world skeptically, you're actively looking for news and information that reinforces that. So let's apply it to real estate. Here's something that we know is true in the state of Maine. March this year over March last year was pretty much the same, right? The market was pretty much a push. Some of the lower end stuff didn't quite sell as well. The mid-level stuff sold like hotcakes. Higher end slowed down a little bit. Overall average, it was a push. Okay, so that's true. The numbers bear that out. But here's what's also true. Lending is tightening up, and it's beginning to have an effect on our market right now. That is also true. And this weekend, there was a property in Portland, Maine that had 17 offers on it, and they could only sell the house freaking once. And that is true. We're going to be talking a lot over the next, week and a half that we've got left on our ability to interrogate reality. Our ability to interrogate reality. And to do that, we've got to be really aware of our filter. And we've got to be aware of how is that working for me. I want to, just in case some of you are struggling with this right now, I want to take a moment and just point out, we're the only species on the planet that can do this. Okay? We're talking about examining the programming in our brain, asking a question about how it's working, and then putting tools in place to actually change it. Nothing else can do that. Okay? So this is the tip of the spear when it comes to kind of the evolution of how a brain works. So we've got to be understanding that, hey, this is going to take some work. This is going to take energy. So just be prepared for that, okay? And, I know for myself, the older I get, I might get less flexible in that area. My opinions, my attitude, some of those things tend to be a little more fixed, which may mean I have to work a little bit harder than I did, say, in my 20s or 30s to remain flexible. Okay, so I would just be aware of that too, aware of your own elasticity in that area. Now, that may be just true for me, that may not be true for you, but I know it takes more work now than it did 10 years ago. More work to observe my filter, more work to set it aside, more work to be flexible, be willing to learn, be proactively looking to learn. All right, so again, all conversations are with myself, and sometimes they include other people, right? So a couple of things we need to have some awareness around. First off, how rare what we're talking about is. And what we're really talking about is understanding somebody, not interpreting them, okay? Really having a heart level understanding, as opposed to, I got their info and now I've interpreted it and I've shoved it through my filter. And here's what, in The Experience Economy, author Joseph Pine writes, the experience of being understood versus interpreted is so compelling you can charge admission. And one of the thoughts that came to me on that was, how many people in your life would you say really understand you? Is it hundreds or is it a handful? Come off of mute if you would, if you've got some thoughts on that.
Hey, I'm sorry. It's me, Elizabeth. I'm finally on the camera.
We love you, Elizabeth.
Thanks. I'll take the love. Let me say, I'll take that. I've been ill and I still look kind of bad, but
you look great.
Thanks a lot. I have 50 million things to say for myself. And the other thing is I have to get off at 12 o'clock, so I'm sorry I can't stay.
That's all right. We're going to be done at 12.
I Am Affirmations, and I'll even play it at night when I'm asleep. There's another one that I listen to to tell myself, I am successful. I am whatever. My clients are this, blah, 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 blah. I have certain times during the day where I have to recite certain things to tell myself the type of clients I want to bring to myself.
Sure.
I am really tired of these people that I've been getting, and there's somebody in between me and that other person controlling the family thing. And there was a time I was trying to work with David Dowd, and he actually told me that they're dysfunctional. He's like, leave them alone. Just forget about it.
We can't fix it. We can't fix it. Well, let me ask you this, though, Elizabeth. Let me ask you this. Do you have hundreds of people in your life that you could look at and go, wow, they really understand me?
No
Or is
way.
it a small group? Is it a handful?
Less than a handful. Everybody, cut off some fingers.
I got to cut off some fingers. Right. Let me hear somebody else. I just want to test the waters here.
I think 5 or 6.
5 or 6. Yeah. As I thought about that question myself, I thought, 3. So if it's a small number for you, it just, I think, points out how challenging it is to really be in the moment and understand the person we're talking to. Really understand them, really connect with them, really hear them. An example I can give you is, I've been running KW offices for about 10 years, and one of the gifts, one of the joys is that when you guys piss off a consumer, guess who they get to talk to? This guy, right? And when I have handled those well, I can promise you all I did was really listen, make sure they know I heard what their frustration was, reinforce to them that that's not who we strive to be, and let them know the actions that I planned to take. Every time I did that and did that well, the conversation ended well. There was no further action required from the side of the consumer. They were able to walk away from the call going, okay, I got that off my chest. I was heard. I now get to move on with my life. If I don't really hear them, if I don't get into action, if I interpret them, and say things like, well, geez, I'm sorry that offended you, as opposed to hearing that they were really offended and then trying to find ways to find some common ground with it, then the issue tended to escalate, right? They weren't heard, and so it kept getting hotter and hotter and hotter, as opposed to beginning to cool off a little bit.
There's this is Joan. There's a great training that you can do online, and it's mindful thinking or mindful actions. I forget exactly the title.
Yeah.
The premise is to seek to understand first.
Yes.
Before you respond, seek to understand. And sometimes I know I've had to do this, and it seems like the older I get, the smaller amount of people that do tend to understand us as individuals. Surprisingly, you never thought like this when you were 17 or 18. But now you look and you're getting to these very adult conversations and you're like, gosh, we're really not on the same page at all. But I think sometimes you do have to, if you're talking about people just in your life, not talking about your customers, you can say to them, hey, there's some great, training online. And I've seen individuals in my life go through those trainings and then they come from a different vantage point. So I know that's more than we can ask for from a customer. You can't stop them in their tracks and say, you need some training, to communicate here. But I think your message of flexibility, understanding where they're coming from, but just to let everybody know on the call that there is really excellent training surrounding this topic online, and it's surrounding mindful thinking or mindful actions. And again, the premise is to think first, or whatever I said.
Think first to understand, right? Then to be understood.
Seek first to understand. That is the premise. Seek first to understand.
Yep. And I will tell you that, in my experience in KW, I think we say that a lot. And I think there's a danger that we get caught in, which is now that I've said it, I can assume that I'm doing it, right? If I say I'm going to stay in curiosity, well, that gives me permission to now not be in curiosity because I put it out there. Oh, I'm going to stay in curiosity, and now let me judge the crap out of you. What? So seeking first to understand, staying in curiosity, it's actually a lot of work, right? Again, if you wake up in the morning and you're pre-wired to judge, you're pre-wired to sort and put people in buckets, because that's how we just try to stay on top of stuff. Like, oh, you're a high D or you're a high I. Oh, I get you. No, you don't. You might get some superficial aspects of me, but you're not likely to actually get me, hear me, slow down long enough to understand me. Are we hearing this? Yes, maybe. Most of you are asleep.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Awesome.
I
think most of the people getting more understanding with the time. Young people more judgmental than the older one. We might have our opinion, but the older you get in, the less you spitting out your opinion.
Well, yes, hopefully over time we gain some wisdom, right? And that wisdom hopefully shows up in the better to be, right? What's the great quote? Better be thought of as a fool than to open my mouth and remove all doubt, right? So sometimes our wisdom is we just keep our mouth shut a little bit more. All right, so I want to give you a couple other nuggets on this and then open it up for some conversation, because we've really dove in through 3 pretty big topics in these first 3 days. Last little nugget here. A senior executive with a client company told us that there was a way, if there was a way to attach dollars to the cost of misinterpretation and misunderstanding in his organization, it could very well be the biggest number on their profit and loss statement. I'll say it again. If you could put misunderstanding and misinterpretation as a dollar amount on your P&L, it would probably be the biggest dollar amount on your P&L. Here's the test. Look at your screen. Let's see who has experienced this. Have any of you ever had a client who said, I'm going to buy or sell with you, who soon thereafter bought or sold with somebody else? If so, raise your hand. They said that, hey, I'm going to work with you, and then they didn't. Raise your hand so you can see it on the screen, right? From my screen, that's more than 50% of you. That's just one small example of a misinterpretation or a misunderstanding. You're banking on that income going, hey, I got that listing coming. And then they work with somebody else. Clearly, we didn't understand. Clearly, we didn't. Otherwise, that outcome would not have happened that way. It could be the largest expense item on your P&L, the lost opportunity because we didn't slow down long enough to really understand, to really take into account where somebody is and get ourselves there as well. So quick review over what we've covered in these first 3 days, because again, these are the big transformational ideas that we're covering in Fierce, and then we're gonna dive into over the next 7 days the 7 principles. Okay, so a little quick review here. 1, our careers, our companies, our personal relationships, and our very lives succeed or fail gradually, then suddenly, one conversation at a time. Right? So gradual, then suddenly, either on the success column or the failure column, and it shows up in all areas of our lives, and we need to be watching those gradually moments, right? Yesterday, we had algebra class, C equals R. Who can remind me what C equals R means?
Conversation equal relationship.
The conversation is the relationship. The conversation is the relationship, exactly. And then today, the conversation, all conversations are with myself, and sometimes they include other people, right? Sometimes they include other people. All right, we've got a few minutes left. I want to open it up for comments, questions. What have you heard so far? Give me a couple of ahas before we run out of time.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to jump in and try to go first.
Go ahead,
So,
Elizabeth.
Bob, thank you so much. At the bottom of my emails, I actually have there, listening for understanding is key for communication. I'm trying to start the people off from the very beginning
Yes.
to teach them and train them that communication with me is going to be really important. This idea that they're just going to tell me what to do, or they only have to tell me something, this other part to it, and they're going to try to figure it all out, that's really not going to work. I have a video about how we're a team and how I like to work with my clients. Because I feel like I have to keep jumping over this hurdle with people. I don't even know what it's all about. And then I know one of my big problems is I was trained to believe what people say.
How dare you?
I know. All my life. So I got a lot of undoing I'm going to have to do with that. Because if somebody tells me something, I was never told, I'm not to question that person.
Right.
That's what they told you. Take what they say.
Sure.
And
I think your email
anymore.
piece is a great example of creating a conversation around people, right? And if we can create a conversation around people, they will typically grow into it. They will grow into that conversation, right? So you're taking a very proactive approach of saying, hey, communication's really important. And I'm just going to gently be reminding everybody involved how important that is to the success of what we're doing. Thank you, Elizabeth. I want to leave time for a couple more. Who else?
Mr. Bossman?
Lena, yes.
Hey, most profound one for me was the day one. And it was things happen gradually and then suddenly. And it's been I'd forgotten about that one. And it just has been so earth shattering in that it's across our whole lives. We eat poorly. And suddenly you're overweight, or you've got a heart attack, or you've got a stroke.
Yes.
You don't do your lead generation, on a regular basis, or you feel, and it's just everything. And it's just that perseverance, and that, you're always working on something, and the gradual instead becomes a positive.
Mm-hmm.
And that suddenly you're down, 10 pounds, you're
Right.
the whole, or, that you, oh my God, you live to 95,
Right.
Be it that you want to or not.
I have a friend of mine who, he very rarely weighs himself, but he weighs every meal.
Really?
Yes. He weighs every meal instead of weighing himself. And the mantra is, I'm going to keep focused on the small scale, not the big scale. Right? And it's such a great metaphor for the gradually then suddenly. If I overeat, those pounds are going to show up on the big scale. But if I monitor each and every meal, and again, this is a little extreme, but if I monitor each meal and I'm eating the appropriate amount, whether it be in ounces or in cups or whatever, then I'm not going to have negative impact on the big scale. I won't. Time for maybe one more.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Okay, I like the last opportunity because we don't slow down and not hear the conversation very well. And if you go back to many years of experience in business, how many opportunity we lost. I think there's a lot of people lost too many opportunities.
Oh yeah. I mean, here's the one that, all right, quick math problem, then we'll send you home. How much business did you do last year in gross commission income? Write down the number. What did you do in income last year? Most agents are not great at following up. Would you agree?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So if you fall into that category, and in my experience, 15 years of real estate, my experience is that is the vast majority of you. Okay. Nothing against any of you personally. There might be a couple of you that go, oh, no, Brad, here's my systematic way that I follow up with leads, and I touch them, 27 times in the first 90 days and blah, blah, blah. And it's all okay, great. Okay. You're an outlier. You're really nailing it. Most of us are freaking winging it. We're like, well, I've got this posted and I've got this note and that's more of our follow-up system. Yes, I see some convicting smiles on faces.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so here's the math. Somebody be bold and give me your number that you wrote down for gross commission income.
I mean, the commission that you like.
The commission you received last year.
Oh, it's 134.
154?
134.
134. Look at me trying to give you an extra 20 grand, right? So 134 reflects 30% of the possibility, because we know 70% of our income can come from our follow-up. So if I'm doing a job on follow-up and I brought in 134,000, that means the opportunity was actually $446,000. And my failure to follow up appropriately cost me 312 grand.
I have never heard that stated that way, and that is profound.
Profound and like I can't breathe and my heart aches profound, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm with you.
Totally. It was not the kind of profound I was looking for. Yeah. Yeah. If we don't follow up well, we're only capturing the now business. The now business in any business is only about 30% of the possible. And this isn't assuming you're going to get 100% conversion rates or anything like that. It's just saying that, you know, the now business that you capture reflects 30% of the possible. And if we really followed up well, if we had real good systems in there, we could capture 70% more, which in the example we were just given would be just 300 grand. No big deal. No big deal. Yeah. So think about that as this market shifts. Do you really need more leads, or do we have to get a lot better at listening, asking questions, and following up systematically? I hope this was a productive one for you. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.